In the quiet, snow-dusted valleys of Switzerland, time is not measured in seconds, but in generations. For the Thorne family, this was law. For 2 centuries, their name, Thorne & C, was synonymous with the pinnacle of watchmaking, a bastion of tradition so rigid it had become a religion. But for Elias Thorne, the young heir to this gilded cage, the relentless, perfect ticking of his family's creations sounded less like a heartbeat and more like the countdown to extinction. He saw the world outside accelerating, embracing new materials, new ideas, while his family's company polished the brass on its own mausoleum, convinced of its own immortality. Elias was a heretic in the temple of gears and springs. He had spent his youth not just mastering the company's legendary calibers, but secretly studying materials the old guard considered vulgar: carbon fiber, ceramics, silicon. He saw a future where a watch was not just a delicate treasure to be kept in a safe, but a resilient, indispensable tool for a new generation of explorers and pioneers. He drafted designs for timepieces that were lighter, stronger, and more accurate than anything his ancestors could have dreamed of. He created a detailed proposal for a new line, codenamed Project Chimera, that would fuse their sacred traditions with radical new technology. He presented his proposal to the company's board of directors, a council of elders led by his own father, a man who viewed innovation as a personal betrayal. The boardroom at Thorne & C was not a place for new ideas. It was a museum of past glories. As Elias spoke with passion about the future, the board members looked at his prototypes with disdain. They saw not progress, but a grotesque mutation of their heritage. His father did not raise his voice. His disapproval was a quiet, suffocating force. He picked up one of Elias's carbon fiber prototypes, held it beside one of their classic, solid gold watches, and said, "We sell heirlooms. You have created a toy." The project was unanimously rejected. The rejection wasn't more than a business decision. It was a public humiliation. Word of the heir's folly spread through the insular world of Swiss watchmaking. Competitors whispered that Thorne & C was a house divided, that the young Thorne lacked the gravity of his forefathers. To add to the insult, a massive, soulless global luxury conglomerate, the Titan Group, saw this weakness as an opportunity. They began a campaign of quiet aggression, buying up Thorne & C stock on the open market, sensing a chance to acquire the venerable brand and absorb it into their portfolio of soulless, mass-market luxury goods. The company's very existence was now under threat, a direct result of the board's refusal to adapt. Instead of retreating, Elias doubled down. He saw the coming hostile takeover not as a threat, but as a deadline. He knew the only thing that could save the company was a technological leap so profound it would make their stock price untouchable. He cashed out a small trust fund his grandmother had left him, a fund meant for a comfortable life, and poured every last franc into a secret, desperate project. He rented a small, abandoned workshop high in the mountains, a place forgotten by time. There, with a single, aging but brilliant watchmaker who believed in his vision, he would not just build a new watch, he would reinvent the very heart of it, the movement. The project had a new name, Caliber 0. Elias was a heretic in the temple of gears and springs. He had spent his youth not just mastering the company's legendary calibers, but secretly studying materials the old guard considered vulgar: carbon fiber, ceramics, silicon. He saw a future where a watch was not just a delicate treasure to be kept in a safe, but a resilient, indispensable tool for a new generation of explorers and pioneers. He drafted designs for timepieces that were lighter, stronger, and more accurate than anything his ancestors could have dreamed of. He created a detailed proposal for a new line, codenamed Project Chimera, that would fuse their sacred traditions with radical new technology. The powerful, energetic, masculine baritone of Caliber 0 was a radical new escapement, the regulating organ of the watch. Traditional escapements were a marvel of complexity, but they were sensitive to shocks and magnetism. Elias's design, inspired by the principles of quantum mechanics, used a component made of crystalline silicon, etched with a precision that was impossible even a decade ago. It required no lubrication, was immune to magnetic fields, and oscillated at a frequency that promised a level of accuracy previously thought to be theoretical. But theory is a fragile thing. Their first 50 prototypes failed. Some shattered under stress, others simply wouldn't run. With each failure, a little more of their precious time and money evaporated into the cold mountain air. Meanwhile, back in the valley, the siege was tightening. The Titan Group now controlled nearly 40% of Thorne & C's stock. They forced a shareholder meeting, scheduling it for 3 months' time, a date they knew would be the final nail in the coffin. Elias's father, trapped by his own pride and tradition, was powerless. He saw the company his great-grandfather had built being dismantled piece by piece. He began receiving daily reports on Elias's mountain folly from spies within the valley, each report detailing another failure, another setback. The son's insane gamble was now, in the father's eyes, an accelerant to their shared destruction. The breakthrough came not from a moment of genius, but from an accident. During the testing of the 51st prototype, a small power surge from their aging generator caused the etching machine to misfire, creating a microscopic asymmetrical flaw in the silicon escapement's geometry. Antoine was about to discard it, but Elias, driven by a desperate curiosity, insisted they test it. They activated the movement. It began to beat. It did not shatter. The asymmetrical flaw, by complete chance, had created a harmonic resonance that stabilized the entire structure. It was the missing piece of the puzzle, a beautiful, perfect imperfection. The god of chance had smiled upon them. Caliber 0 was alive. Now that they had the heart, they had to build the body. With the shareholder meeting looming just weeks away, they had no time to design a traditional watch case. They needed something that could be fabricated quickly, yet was strong enough to protect their revolutionary creation. Elias looked not to the world of watchmaking, but to the world of aerospace. He acquired a block of forged carbon fiber composite, the same material used in the chassis of racing cars and the fuselages of stealth jets. It was a material his father had called it toy. Now it would be the armor for their salvation. The irony was not lost on him. With less than a week to go, they assembled the first and only prototype of the watch they called the Zero. It was a stark, brutalist masterpiece. The forged carbon case was featherlight, but incredibly strong. There was no dial, only a sapphire crystal revealing the strange, beautiful beating heart of caliber 0 within. It wasn't an heirloom. It wasn't a piece of jewelry. It was a statement, a declaration that the future of timekeeping had arrived. As Elias held the finished watch in his hand, feeling its almost unnerving lightness, he knew it was the single greatest thing he had ever created. But would the world see it as a revolution or as the final, desperate act of a madman? The day of the shareholder meeting arrived. It was held in a cold, modern auditorium, a neutral ground chosen by the Titan Group. The mood was funereal. The takeover was seen as a foregone conclusion. Elias's father and the old board sat in the front row, their faces grim, ready to surrender the company their family had controlled for 200 years. The CEO of the Titan Group, a sleek, predatory man named Marcus Vance, delivered a condescending speech about honoring Thorne's legacy while ushering it into a profitable future, a corporate euphemism for gutting the company and turning its name into a mass-market brand. Just as Vance was about to call for the final vote, a side door to the auditorium opened. Elias Thorne walked in. He was not dressed in a suit of surrender. He wore a simple, dark turtleneck and trousers, looking more like a tech innovator than a watchmaker. He carried no briefcase, no documents. All eyes turned to him. A wave of whispers went through the room. His father looked up, his expression a mixture of shock, anger, and a faint, long-buried spark of hope. Marcus Vance paused, a smirk playing on his lips, amused by this final, pathetic act of defiance. "Mr. Thorne," he said with theatrical politeness, Have you come to watch the end of your dynasty? Elias walked to a small, empty table at the front of the room. He didn't say a word. He simply took the 0 from his wrist and placed it under a document camera that projected onto the massive screen behind the stage. "Before you vote," he said, his voice calm and clear, amplified by the microphone, "you should know what you are truly buying." On the screen, the image of the watch appeared, magnified 1,000 times. The audience saw the strange alien movement, the silicone heart beating with hypnotic speed. "This," Elias continued, "is caliber 0. It has 300 fewer parts than a traditional Thorne movement. It is immune to magnetism, and it is accurate to within 1 second per decade. It is the most advanced mechanical timekeeping device ever created by man." A murmur of disbelief and excitement rippled through the shareholders. Vance, recovering quickly, laughed into the microphone. "A fascinating prototype," he said dismissively, "but it is unproven. A fantasy. Our offer is for the real Thornancy, the one with a legacy of reliability." Elias anticipated this. "You are right," he said. "It needs a demonstration." He picked up a powerful industrial magnet from a bag, a magnet strong enough to instantly stop any traditional watch. He moved it towards the watch. The audience gasped. His own father half rose from his seat, thinking his son had gone mad and was about to destroy his own creation. Elias placed the magnet directly on top of the watch. On the giant screen, the movement did not slow, it did not stutter, it did not miss a single beat. But he wasn't finished. He took the watch, walked to the side of the stage, and without a word, dropped it onto the hard, concrete floor. The sound of the impact echoed through the silent room. A woman screamed. His father closed his eyes in pain. Elias calmly picked up the watch, placed it back under the camera. The forged carbon case was unscratched, and on the screen, the heart of caliber 0 was still beating, perfectly. In the space of 30 seconds, he had shattered 2 centuries of dogma. A watch did not have to be fragile. It did not have to be protected from the modern world. He had not just created a new watch, he had created a new definition of quality. The silence in the auditorium was broken by a single, unexpected sound. An investor in the back, a man known for his ruthless pragmatism, began to clap. Slowly, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. Another joined in, then another. Within seconds, the entire room, save for Marcus Vance and his team, erupted in thunderous applause. They weren't just applauding a watch, they were applauding courage. They were applauding innovation. They were witnessing the birth of a legend, a story they would tell for years. Elias's father stood up and looked at his son, his eyes filled with a pride that finally eclipsed his deep-seated traditionalism. In that moment, the generational war was over. The vote was a mere formality. The Titan Group's offer was rejected by a staggering 98% margin. The news of the miracle at the shareholder meeting spread through the financial world like a shockwave. Before the meeting was even officially over, Thorne & C's stock price, which had been stagnant for years, began to skyrocket. Tech investors, luxury funds, venture capitalists, everyone wanted a piece of the company that had just redefined the future. By the end of the day, the company's valuation had tripled, making it financially impregnable to any hostile takeover. Marcus Vance hadn't just lost a vote. He had been utterly and completely outplayed. That evening, in the grand wood-paneled boardroom that had once been the site of his humiliation, Elias met with his father. There was no board, no lawyers, only the two of them. His father, humbled and transformed, slid a single heavy ornate key across the polished mahogany table. It was the master key to the Thorne & C workshops, a symbol of absolute authority passed down through generations. "It is yours," his father said, his voice thick with emotion. "The company is yours. Lead it where it needs to go." It was not just a transfer of power. It was an apology, a blessing, and a final, complete act of faith. Elias Thorne's leadership was as revolutionary as his watch. He did not fire the old guard, he retrained them, pairing the wisdom of the master watchmakers with the vision of a new generation of engineers and material scientists. He transformed the dusty museum-like workshops into state-of-the-art laboratories that still honored the old traditions of hand finishing. The first watch released under his leadership was the Zero, an exact replica of the prototype that had saved them. It became an instant icon, a legend. It was followed by a new generation of Thorne timepieces, each one a perfect, unapologetic fusion of the past and the future, of soul and science. Years later, a journalist asked Elias the secret to his success. They expected a story about technology, about silicon and carbon fiber. But Elias's answer was simpler. He led the journalist to a quiet room in the heart of the manufactory. Inside, under a single spotlight, was a glass case. And in that case was not a watch, but the 51st prototype of the escapement. The flawed, asymmetrical, beautifully imperfect piece of silicon that had been their salvation. Our company was dying from perfection, Elias said. We were so afraid of making a mistake that we stopped moving forward. We were saved not by a perfect plan, but by a perfect accident. It taught me that true progress is never a straight line. It is the courage to embrace the flaw, to learn from the break, and to find the unexpected harmony in the chaos. And what of his father? The man who had been his greatest adversary became his most ardent supporter. He did not retire into obscurity. Instead, he founded the Thorne Horological Institute, a school dedicated to teaching the next generation. But it was a school with a new philosophy. Half of the curriculum was dedicated to mastering the sacred, centuries-old techniques of hand craftsmanship. The other half was a radical exploration of material science, quantum physics, and chaotic systems. He taught his students not just how to build a perfect watch, but how to learn from the beauty of a perfect failure. It was his act of atonement and his final gift to the future his son had envisioned. Elias Thorne did more than save his family's company. He reset its clock. He taught an entire industry that heritage is not a static monument to be worshipped, but a living foundation upon which to build the future. He proved that the most profound respect you can pay to your ancestors is not to perfectly replicate their work, but to have the courage to advance it, to carry their spirit forward into a new, uncharted age. His story became the ultimate testament to a simple, powerful truth. Sometimes, to save the thing you love, you must be willing to break it first. The legacy of Elias Thorne was not ultimately measured in stock prices or sales figures. It was measured in a paradigm shift. He had broken the spell of perfectionism that had held an entire industry captive. He remains at the head of the company, not as a king ruling from a throne, but as a quiet horologist in his lab, forever searching for the next beautiful accident, the next perfect flaw, the next frontier in the endless, intricate, and magnificent art of measuring time.